Well, what I was suggesting was that there's another layer to this, especially with, we have people repairing, mending their items, reusing their items. So my whole thought process was to extend this model. So to extend this model and come up like have another component of it, which I call the product lifecycle expansion component, which shares all the many ways people, in essence, reuse their garments.
Welcome to another episode of Innovation Insights, where we dive deep into the minds shaping the future of industries through innovation, creativity, and groundbreaking research. We believe that innovation happens in all aspects of life. I am your host, Dr. Yolanda Sanders. Today's guest is Dr. Michelle D. Burton, Assistant Professor of Merchandising in the Department of Art and Design at Montclair State University. Michelle brings a wealth of experience from both academia and industry, having worked in planning, buying, and merchandising for leading retailers such as Nordstrom, Macy's, JCPenney, and Claire's, as well as consulting for brands like Walmart, Tom's, and Revolution Beauty. Her academic career reflects the same commitment to innovation. Michelle earned her PhD in apparel, merchandising, and design from Iowa State University, where her dissertation explored consumer decision-making and the extended product life of clothing. Her research continues to focus on sustainability, consumer behavior, and the social impact of fashion. She has published in fashion practice and sustainability and presented at international conferences advancing conversations around sustainability-conscious consumers, apparel repurposing, and well-being in marginalized communities. At Montclair, Michelle teaches courses in textiles, fashion retail mathematics, and fashion marketing, and also helps redevelop the program's curriculum for 2026. Beyond teaching, she is building collaborations that merge design, merchandising, and social justice, such as a project with human trafficking survivors that uses fashion as a tool for awareness and empowerment. In this episode, we will explore Michelle's rich career trajectory, her transition from corporate retail into academia, the challenges and opportunities of being a Black woman navigating tenure-track life, and her vision for building stronger connections between industry, research, and social impact. Michelle, welcome to the Innovation Insights podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Great to be here.
Oh, we've known each other now for several years when you started your doctoral studies, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. I was so excited that you reached out when I was a graduate student. It meant so much to me that the chair of the department was reaching out to me to see how I was doing and wanted to get lunch. I will never forget that. So I will just tell you, it meant so much to me. And the conversations I remember, you probably don't remember, I asked about, do I need qualitative and quantitative? And you said to me, you should be strong in both. You probably don't remember.
Yeah. I do remember our lunches. I think that was the first year I was chair. And that summer I went to lunch or dinner or breakfast with all of the new graduate students across the whole department. So hospitality management and apparel too.
I just thought it was amazing that you would take the time. I just want to tell you, I thought
Oh,
it was very well received by me as a new graduate student. And also the fact that I was already nervous coming into the program just because I've been out of academia for a while. And then there's always the thought, like, maybe not for everybody. For me, it was like, can I actually do this? I don't know. Like, I didn't really believe in myself. I wasn't sure.
yeah.
It meant a lot to me. Okay. So that was very memorable for me.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure.
It's good.
Yeah, those were special memories for me as part of my career, having those lunches and dinners and really getting to know everyone that comes into the program is so dynamic and interesting, has such amazing careers before entering the doctoral program. So it was so much fun to do that. But tell us a little bit about us. So, what got you interested in fashion?
So this is gonna sound great. Sometimes a lot of people have these dreams of, oh, I want to be in fashion. That never actually occurred for me. So I actually was pre-med in college. And then I said, I can't do a lot of math and science. And so I had just always worked in retail. And in high school, I remember I worked for Cato's, I worked for Chico's, I worked for Gap at one point, United Colors of Benetton. I had all the summer holiday jobs. And then in college, I worked for Bally, which people used to confuse that with Bally Fitness. And I used to always have to say, no, Bally of Switzerland, like this fine leather good, some apparel, like it, I fell into it and then I grew to love it over time. Not that I didn't love it before. I loved working in stores. I still believe that people that work in the stores are the most critical people in the retail organization, like boots on the ground. Like, I love it. Yeah, I hated working holidays and all that stuff with the rush of people, and I have horrendous stories about people. But for me, I just loved it. It's constantly changing. The people that I've met over the years, I've worked in many different categories of business. I was a part of Sephora inside J.C. Penney when we were, I think it was at like 5 stores, and then we built it from there. Like, I've had the highs, the lows, the stress, it's just been an amazing time.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on something you said about retail being those individuals working in the stores being so critical because I believe within the whole supply chain and I did spend time in retail, but I also have a background in design.
Mhm.
And as a designer, I felt that the retail part and the individuals working in the stores was critical because you get to hear from customers what they like, what they don't like is so important.
You get to me, and I use my differences between working in the stores and then I moved to corporate office. And then, like, I tell my students all the time that store experience is so invaluable. Like, when you're in the store, you hear from people every day what they like, what they don't like. You can see what people gravitate towards. So there's nothing like being able to see somebody who gravitates towards something but doesn't necessarily buy it. And then if you're in the store, you can say, why not? Like, you can have conversations. When I'm in a corporate setting, I've looked at like numbers, all these numbers, and I was a planner for a long time, looking at numbers on a spreadsheet. So I can look at the numbers and maybe see what worked or what didn't work. And just like a designer could maybe see from the numbers what people were buying, what they weren't, but you can't have the conversations to know what goes behind it. And then there are all the nuances with something that works on the East Coast might not work on the West Coast, like all of those many things that come into play. And then competition. So I'm in, and this is just related to a specific store or whatever location. I can see what's going on. I can see what competition is doing. I'm like, I can see it because especially, I loved working for United Colors of Benetton, and it was a franchise store, going out in the mall, talking to my friends in the mall, seeing what's going on, so that's why it's just such a difference. It's nothing like it, and then even at the busy times working during the holidays, there's still, even though, like, you don't wanna come to work, you don't wanna deal with people, there's still, to me, a certain rush that comes along with it. But yeah, that's how it was the easiest job to get. I also worked for Astroworld, a theme park, Six Flags theme park.
Oh,
I've always customer service aspects.
uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's a real crossover with tourism and events because retail is a big part of that. Yeah, huge. But you mentioned that you're a planner.
Yeah.
Would you explain to our audience what a planner does in case we might have some audience members that don't know what a planner is?
Sure. So for many years, I worked as a merchandise planner. So basically, I worked on the team with the buyers, allocators, buy plan. Like in Nordstrom, it was buy planners, and in a nutshell, I used to call myself the pocketbook for the team, like the wallet. Like, I managed our open to buy process. plan sales, plan receipts, plan markdowns, preseason planning, in-season planning, post-season planning, but working kind of hand in hand with the buyer to make sure that we were fulfilling our budgets, also making recommendations on what our budget should be. Like for a couple years, I was a planner at Nordstrom
Mhm.
for special sizes, so Encore and Petites. And I worked with a pretty big team. I had 2 buyers, 2 buy planners, and so I'm managing that whole business, the financial aspects of that entire business. So, it can be a pretty big job depending on where you are. Like, I've had some pretty big businesses, especially at Claire's, where I had novelty jewelry and tree earrings, department 3 and 5. I still remember this stuff. And yeah, I worked with the team, managed, like, our finances in a way.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
So how did you keep that when you were working in corporate? How did you keep in touch with what was happening at the retail store level?
Yeah. I like to it was embedded into my role in a way, and I say this because at Nordstrom, at least at the time, we still went out to the stores. We worked anniversary sales, we worked half yearly sales, like, during Thanksgiving, like, we were in the stores. So, what I did was I still made store visits, even at other places I worked. I still went to the stores, I still followed what was going on in terms of sales promotions, but the competitive shopping was invaluable to me. To me, the most invaluable exposure I how do I put this? The most invaluable exposure for me was getting out into the stores to see what was going on, even if just on my own. There was nothing like that. And that was easy for me to do. Now I don't love going to the malls so much, but back then I was always going to the mall, shopping myself. So it was very easy to do. And then I could report back on a Monday morning with my team what I saw, and everybody was doing the same thing. So we would all report back on what we had seen in the marketplace, especially in our own store, but definitely competition. So I think that's critical. And also, I will say, I didn't do this as well back then, but I do it now. And maybe it's because I teach, but staying in tune with what's going on in trade publications. So, reading what's going on, your women's wear daily, your business of fashion, retail dive. Like I get some constant reports. I think I'm trying to remember all of them, but I get daily reports and see what's going on. I also subscribe to Sourcing Journal or the university does, but I get the alerts. So, yeah, I think staying in tune. It's easier when you're in the corporate office because you're always talking about it. Your marketing team, like you're always getting the insights. It's harder for me to get it now. Yeah.
Yes. But wow, what great industry experience you bring to the classroom and to your research. And then also, yeah, you're making such a great effort to stay in touch with what's happening in the industry. And that's so
Yeah.
important, really.
Yeah. I missed it sometimes a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've always have missed industry throughout my academic career too. So what made you decide to transition from corporate America to academia?
It was something back when I was in college, when I did my undergrad at University of Houston in marketing, I always said that I wanted to get my doctorate and teach and could do consulting work. I always said that. And I think over the years, I went through many transitions with different retailers, worked through Chapter 11s, although never having been laid off myself, but I made lots of moves in my career. I won't lie, I made lots of moves, was at places, maybe 2 years less, at, like, Macy's, I think it was, like, a year. So, at one point, I remember I was at Route 21, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore." Like, I need some stability, and I also it was such a rat race because I moved a lot of different places, although I'm very thankful I got to experience a lot of places from the East Coast to the West Coast. I've lived almost everywhere, but I just said, "I wanna slow down a little bit." And I'd always taught online, like, I taught online for over, like, several years, and I just said, "You know what? I feel like I can make a change. I want to take my experience and make a change. I want to do it in the classroom. And so that is when I decided to pursue my doctorate. And the last retailer I worked at after that was Claire's. So I went from Route 21, I moved to the Chicago area and worked for Claire's, and then I had determined because at Claire's, I will never forget, I was taking a couple classes. I'd have a class online at 6 PM. Meetings would go forever. Nobody has essence of time. We just need to handle it. I never told anyone I was working on my doctorate, and so I would rush home. I can remember times where I'd have 2 laptops out, my laptop focused on class and then my work laptop, and it just became too much, and that's when I said, "I've got to transition to academia completely full time," and I moved back to Texas, and because I got a role with University of North Texas as a full-time lecturer. So, it was just I had a big area I was managing at Claire's, and it just got to be too much with managing my studies and Claire's. I remember during spring break, I was, like, working the whole time, but not on my coursework, on stuff for Claire's because I felt so behind. That was a challenge because I also didn't wanna wait 10 years and graduate. Like, I wanted to graduate in a reasonable amount of time, and so I decided I've got to take a step back, which also, to be quite transparent, meant a step back in pay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. Say, like, pursue my goal, which is sad, but it's true. A significant step back, and I had to pay for my own move for the most part back to Texas from
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Teaching in academia is not for becoming wealthy. It is.
Yeah, it's quite a difference, and I had always heard, but I never really realized until I got into it. And also, even when you, like, move, because all these moves I did across these years, companies always paid for them.
Yeah.
They always paid for them, and so I was like, "Oh, never's gonna offer me." I think I got maybe, like, $1,000 or something, which
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's nice, if maybe if you have a U-Haul, but I needed to get somebody I need to pack my stuff up, but I need somebody to transport it for.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, no, I know, it's something else.
Yeah, yeah, so I was like, "Okay." So yeah.
So, what's been some of the differences that you've seen between, corporate culture and academic culture? Wow.
Move slow. So I still am working through that. It's challenging. It probably will forever be challenging to me. Moves really slow. And what's ironic to me is our industry moves fast, fast reaction. So even though we sit in academia, like it's still fashion and we move so slow. And so I try not to let that stifle my goals. Like I try to move around or figure out how to work through the system, but the fact that everything moves so slow, there's no quick reaction. And then also, I think for me is and I'm applying this to academia, but from a fashion lens, we're such an applied industry.
They are.
And I find that a lot of people that I work with don't necessarily have a significant background in this space. So that is challenging to me to have conversations about what's actually going on, not just from textbooks, but what's like going on and how do we mirror what's going on here? Because it can't all come from a textbook. But the thing is, our industry is so applied. And my goal in that is thinking about the students because the majority of the students are not going to go on to get a master's and a doctorate.
Exactly.
They're going to go work in the industry, and what they care about is working in the industry. And I get it because it costs money. They're not probably thinking about feathering their education. And quite frankly, when it comes to the industry, like any increases in pay I got were not necessarily from having a master's, it was from my experience. It's just that the master's allowed me to teach online,
Right.
but the jumps in pay, the increases, or when I went to another company, had nothing to do with the masters. In fact, I noted that some students that I work with in the past that are graduate can't find a job, like they're in a graduate program, cannot find a job, but they have this master's degree, and it's the experience that they lack, I would say. You're looking for experience, and especially now, I think with things being so tight, you gotta be able to fly by yourself, so to speak, or not necessarily just by yourself, but being able to learn quickly, adapt, those types of things, and depending on where you go and work. So I think that to me is the big gap. If I had to put everything I said in a nutshell, it's like this misalignment with the realities of the industry. And I'm just talking from a fashion lens
Oh,
and
yeah.
total deviant.
Yeah, I so agree. I so agree. And I hear you. 35 years. I've watched, navigated, try to balance out that misalignment in various ways.
And to me, like, what even when it comes to thinking about diversity, just thinking about so many different things, technology, the influence of technology, like, I've integrated AI a lot more in my classes, and I've had the pleasure of serving on a panel. It's an ongoing series. I'm working with some partners from Celerant Technology, A&T USA, with retail technology, and also A&T USA. Demetria has a planning and allocation systems and buying. So basically retail leaders in the industry to talk about some of these things. They started this panel discussion that they have every single month, and I was invited by Dimitri to also serve as the speaker on the panel every month. So there are different topics, like we talked about open to buy. Last week, Michelle Salerno led the session on marketing, all the tools that retailers can use to improve their business, various like AI tools that can be used. So that gap with even technology, because to be honest with you, some companies or some individuals in companies, they don't all have a fashion background. Right. And so they don't even know. What was funny to me is when I was talking to someone, they didn't even know that fashion merchandising programs existed.
Yeah. I think what people don't realize how big the fashion industry is. And honestly, the academic programs that we have, at least within the United States, they are not graduating enough students to go into this huge industry. We all wear clothes, so it's so big. And so, yeah, you have to get talent out of other disciplines, and business generally is one of them.
You know what's funny to me? I had a speaker yesterday in my textiles class he's a textile agent. He's amazing. He works in the city, and his wife used to do a fashion design. They have this company together, and he was talking about how what's missing too is a lot of skilled workers. So like like pattern makers, for example. He said that he works with somebody who pattern making is like a loss, or you can't find anybody who wants to do pattern making. And he said that this particular individual he works with pays her pattern makers $150,000 a year. So even we all want to sit in an office, but some of these like skilled positions might actually pay a lot because there is not enough individuals that are doing these, not enough people to sew, and I guess if it's considered menial or it's considered as something that is beneath one, could be an opportunity for even more skilled. $150,000 for pattern making.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say just because there's such and I don't know if I don't think that that's the norm, but just because there's such a lack of individuals to fill these roles is that set off a light bulb for me,
Yeah.
which fashion design then maybe could emphasize, and I don't teach on the fashion design, some fashion design side, but emphasize some of these roles that might be available that might not be thought about by students. And even more so reason why we need to have sewing in the curriculum.
Oh,
No.
thank you for saying that. And thank you for saying that as a merchandising person because, wow, over 35 years, that's also been a concern of mine and a battle that I've been in programs where people are like, "No, the merchandisers don't need to know how to sew. They don't need to know how the garments go together. They just need to be able to evaluate them." But to evaluate, I could go and evaluate a car,
Yeah.
but it's all gonna be on aesthetics and not some of the functionality of it, because I don't have that background to evaluate. So if you wanted me, like, to be your buyer for cars, yeah, I'd be like, "Oh, that's a pretty one. That's a great red." Woo!
Yeah. You want more than that. You want more than that.
It's like for clothes, that are yes, there's the aesthetic part, but there's the functionality part. There's the fabrics and the fibers and the textiles, and then how that all comes together. If you're a buyer, are you buying something that the right seams, it's gonna last, it's gonna and we're gonna talk about sustainability here in a bit too. Is it gonna last and be sustainable, or is it gonna fall apart after you wash it one time because the wrong seams were used to construct it? But okay, I on my soapbox, I will get off.
No, but I agree because I feel like we all should know, like, design, merchant we all should know each other's role. We all should know the same thing, is my opinion, which makes for a richer and more well-rounded, honestly, employee to understand all levels of the business. And I would even say finance, like retail math. What's one of the interesting things? So this is the first program I've been a part of where all of our students are required to take retail math.
That's great.
Yeah, including design, and
Good,
so it's changed up the
good.
whole my approach for
Yeah,
teaching retail math to teach it more collaboratively and to focus on different individuals' roles and how they play a part. Like why retail math is important to the designer. Why, of course, it's important to the merchant. We always think of that as merchandising, but why it's important to the designer. So it's caused me to think about how I'm teaching the course to make sure everyone in the room understands why it's important to them, whether they're interested in design, especially design, sourcing, you wanna be a planner, you wanna be a buyer in the stores, like, why it's significant to everybody.
yeah. Oh, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. I'm so glad to hear that because I've always believed that designers need to understand that this is a business, so they need to understand the financial part. It's a business.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's talk about your dissertation research because it focused on sustainability and consumer behavior. Tell us a little bit about your topic, what the topic was, and how you approached your research.
Right. So, a lot of interesting so I interviewed 15 women from across the world, I didn't anticipate that, about their practices, with textile crafts well, not with textile crafts, with textiles. So, mending, repair, what were their practices? My goal was let me back it up a step. I don't know if anybody on the talk has heard of the Ingle Blackwell Linear model, so the EBM model. So, a lot of times, not a lot of times, but this model takes you through how people make decisions to purchase an item, right? So, we gather information, we do our search for information, we assess all the alternatives, and then we make a decision based on our needs, and then we dispose of the item. Well, what I was suggesting was that there's another layer to this, especially with we have people repairing, mending their items, reusing their items. So my whole thought process was to extend this model. So to extend this model and come up have another component of it, which I call the product life cycle expansion component, which shares all the many ways people, in essence, reuse their garments. And then also, so if I'm repairing and mending my garment, what kind of skills do I need to know in order to do that? So I was trying to take an assessment of the experts, my participants, what skills and what tools they needed, and then also why they participated in those practices. And another component, like what were some of their values, attitudes, beliefs around their behaviors. So it has literally been building block for everything. So I did publish one paper was in sustainability about, and I can send those to you, but socially conscious consumer. I can't remember the whole title at this moment. Well, at this moment. And the other one was in fashion practice last year. That was the build on the mountain. I was so excited about that research being published because that was like the one that I really wanted to branch off from. And so that kind of built out the model. So the product lifecycle expansion model that I was talking about that kind of builds out and extends the EBM model because the model that we have, EBM is a consumer behavior model, and it is actually it's over 50 years old. So as we think about the way our society is moving, some of these models need to be expanded upon to reflect current day practices. So that literally set the stone for my research. And so now I focus on a couple areas. So two major strands. So I focus on textiles, well-being and empowerment, and then also digital engagement and how people interact with platforms and things like social media, digital tool in order to learn about sustainability and also as a means of empowerment. So those two areas that kind of also intersect as well is what so I just worked on something that we are in the midst of making some revisions. It's been accepted, so it should be coming soon. But we worked on so I worked with at Kent State, Dr. Jayoung Hong, and also Bianca Hoshnick. I hope I pronounced her last name correctly. And so we worked on a series of projects last year. Also, Dr. Kim Han was involved and Dr. J at Kent State. So we worked on projects looking at, I wanted to understand how textile craft practices empowered individuals and how it promoted well being. And this kind of came up it's an interesting story. So this project came about because I was sitting down and I was working on fellowship application at Kent State, and I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about well-being and Twitch. I don't know if you remember Twitch. He
Oh,
was
yeah.
at yeah. So I started thinking about mental health, and I started thinking about access, and I started thinking to myself, a lot of resources people don't have access to, but how do I help myself with textile crafts? Because I know that over the years of me living different places, I've played around with soap making, jewelry making, done all this stuff, and I recognize just for me how what that did for me. So that's how the research got started. So we did focus groups and we also conducted interviews, and the project was, I would say, about a year, but we finally have a paper to come out of that that'll be coming soon, hopefully. But it essentially brings that research together to uncover what we discovered, which is textile crafts are definitely, or people engaging them in them is a form of well-being, and people seek empowerment, are able to tell cultural stories. I think I had a participant who worked with immigrants, so you're able to share cultural stories, also relieve stress, and also protect individuals from the harsh impact of marginalization.
Uh,
So I focused on marginalized populations for that research. So that's just one. So sorry.
that's great. No, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. There, so you mentioned Twitch. Would you talk a little bit more? Is it Twitch, the dancer? You,
Yes.
how did that? How did?
So I never really followed him. I think when I was thinking about all this and I was working on this fellowship application, I was looking at a story about him. And my heart just went out because I was like, what must he have been going through? And I thought about it because that was at a time, and I think it's still apparent. This was in, what was this, 20, let's see, summer, 2022, I think.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And I was just, I think it was fall 2022 because yeah, I just started at Ken, I believe. And so I thought about everything. I just started thinking about mental health. And I started thinking about lack of access to care, and I started thinking about how expensive things are and how do individuals help themselves. I also started thinking about stigmas, I know for African Americans, it's, oh, don't go to a therapist, go to church. And so I started thinking about all of those things. And also at the time I was living in Akron, Ohio, which is, I thought I read somewhere that it is one of the probably one of the lowest poverty areas in the country, but don't quote me on that. That's what I remember reading at that time. So these things just caused me to think about how can my research promote well-being?
Right.
How can I promote well-being with what people have, what they own? That was a big piece of it. How do we do that? Because also I remembered even when I engaged in all these different, like I had jewelry making and crafts, that stuff was expensive to buy.
Yeah.
So it was about reusing what I own in order to craft to help me mentally, and that's where it came about. We did the focus groups at first, and we had 3 focus groups. We had participants, Jayoung led kind of bento box making, Jayoung and Kim led bento bags, and so participants talked about their experiences, but we didn't get to dive in deep enough, and so that's when we moved to interviews. And we had about 15, 16 interviews with individuals. I even think that can be expanded on a little bit in the future as well. Because we had 15 to 16, it was mostly female. We had one male, so we didn't have enough male experience, which I believe oftentimes in the literature, that male voice is missing. And yeah, it was very interesting, and it just opened up this world for me to see with people engaging in all kinds of stuff, leather making, definitely just reusing what they're making, different crafts and stuff. So it's lots of good conversations.
Love it. Love it.
How
Yeah, impactful and thinking about well-being through craft. I love that. You've taken on some really important topics, the sustainability, the well-being. You have a project now where you're working with human trafficking survivors. You talk a little bit about that? Because that's been something that's been of interest of mine, especially also from the hospitality side, which I haven't done some work in that area, but in the hospitality area, I've done some research and things.
Yeah, Dr. May Shea and I are going to work on a project that it combines our 2 classes. So she teaches a draping class, I teach fashion marketing. And so what we're doing is we're going to interview human trafficking survivors because we want to share their story. We want to share their narratives through garments and through marketing while also sharing a story of sustainability, how to be responsible, how to consume responsibly. And it's not meant to share like individual stories, but it's more or less to share the narrative and the awareness around human trafficking. So, not specific stories per se, but what we've done is it's going to be a semester long project in the spring. And essentially, what we're looking at doing, we're working with our global office of human trafficking here in the university. And she will also help facilitate the interviews, and we are hoping that those participants will also would like to come back for the showcase. So our 2 classes that we're gonna combine students in teams because we want them working collaboratively. And the idea is that the design students are taking the information from those interviews that we provide them and creating a garment that reflects the aesthetic or the narrative of that human trafficking survivor. And then my fashion marketing students are creating a campaign that tells the story of this garment as well, and also bringing awareness to sustainability, responsible consumption. So, we're going to do that in the spring. It's my first time doing something like this. I'm very excited. We plan to have a showcase at the end of all that where we invite the surrounding Montclair, the surrounding New Jersey communities, as well as the campus, and then it's not a fashion show, but tell the stories of those garments and share the campaigns in that session. So we've applied for grant funding. So hopefully yes, so we find out in October, but so that is a big piece of my research because also one of my goals is to some of these projects will inform what I do in the classroom, and then also bring some of these projects to the classroom so students can have these experiences. So that's a goal through my research as well. And because a big piece of that, the project that I worked on with Dr. Rachel Ike and another graduate student at Iowa State is we worked together last semester to figure out how do, as a product development activity, how can it promote well-being in the classroom? So how can my projects and what I'm doing promote well-being? And what we did was we had our two classes work together. They're each working on separate projects, but we infused different kind, I don't want to call it force, but we use, I'm trying to think of the name of the platform. Gosh, of course I can't think of the name of that platform, but we use that platform for students to be able to communicate. So we had to use it collaboratively, and we
Was
wanted
it
to,
Slack?
no, not Slack.
No.
I used it all throughout my doctoral studies, and now I can't remember the name of it. It's for sharing information. You can work collaboratively with teams.
It was like Google. It doesn't matter.
But we had our students work together, and we wanted to assess how does, when you're working in teams, how can this promote well-being? To have an understanding of that. So that's very exciting. I want to just understand because loneliness is an epidemic. It's an epidemic. It's an epidemic for college students. Quite frankly, it's an epidemic for adults. So
Yeah.
my work, that's a platform for my work to figure out how do we solve this issue? How do we help students feel more connected to each other, to the material, and feel free to speak up? So that's what I'm trying to integrate into my research more.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I would love to have you back at some point after you finish and have results and that you can share from the human trafficking survivors in fashion because you're really using fashion as such a tool to tell stories innovative way. And we like that innovation insights.
How do they say fashion can be, let's see, a parallel. Fashion can be a microphone or a megaphone and also a canvas for creation. Like, I feel it can be more of a tool to tell stories and promote well-being. In a crux, that's what I'm trying to do in my research is telling stories, whether it be through digital engagement or some other means, and promoting well-being at the same time. And also, I didn't even touch on, I hope to develop that even further and look at if I'm promoting well-being and I'm telling stories, how can I also maybe potentially make some money behind, like, entrepreneurship? Is there a connection there as well for individuals? If they're helping themselves, they're helping their well-being, and they're learning more about sustainability, and at the same time, they're using that in order to maybe, economically help themselves. So I think that there's all connections, so it's about finding the pieces there to bring that all together, and that's essentially what my research is about. If I had to sum it up in a few words.
That's great. That's fabulous. That's fabulous. But you talked about well-being, and I know on a personal level, you're a runner, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Talk to us about that because I follow you on social media, and I feel like I've been on a lot of trails and runs with you just at another one, or just at another one, or just out. Oh, it looks so beautiful. As I'm sitting there at my computer and I take a little break, like, oh wow,
It's funny that you asked me this because I'm taking a small break from running for a while, but I've been doing it for well over a decade, and I'm like, "All right, you need to maybe take a little break for a minute." But so I how did I even get, Girls on the Run is where I got my start with running. So Girls on the Run is an organization that teaches, I'm trying to think, teaches girls about the importance of healthy living habits. And so there's a running, I don't wanna say it's not a running program, but at the end of the program, the girls run a 5K. So they train throughout the program, and it is all over the country. I don't even remember how many different, like, chapters, so to speak, or of Girls on the Run, but I was a volunteer for Girls on the Run. So I got into running myself. I ran my first 5K, and I don't remember what year that was, and it just went and went from there. I just wanted to, so I 5K, half marathon. Then I was like, "Oh, if I could do a marathon and I could do a 50K." 50K? and then 50 miles, and then 100K, 62 miles, and then 100 miler. And so over the years, I just became very engrossed in it. And the thing I love most, and the thing I don't have regrets about, that I connected with nature more. So, I love going to the trails. Like out here, there's South Mountain Reservation is one. There's plenty around New Jersey of wonderful trails, but everywhere I've lived, I've found the trails, the areas that I love. In Ohio, Cuyahoga Valley National Park is beautiful. And I find such peace and solace from just going to the trail. Like it's how I get away, it's how I retreat. And what's interesting to me too is I find that life is crazy, not just right now. Honestly, it's always been a little crazy at times, but I just find that's when you connect with people. Or I love connecting with people because we're all out there doing the same thing. So it's just about the trails. It's just about experiencing nature. I generally don't listen to music. It's funny because when I'm on a road run, I might listen to music. When I'm out on the trails, absolutely not. And some of that is because I like to hear what's going on around me. You never know about animals and stuff like that. But wildlife, but I just love it. Like, I love hearing the trees, and oftentimes I'll get annoyed if that trail is too close to something that like a very well populated area because you're like a noise. Like sometimes when I go to South Mountain Reservation out here, the New Jersey train is not too far away from some trail of one, so I hear the horns and I'm like, so I just love it, but it's taken me many places. Some of the races I've done from West Virginia to, oh gosh, I'm like, California. It's taken me to many places I wouldn't normally go. And yeah, I absolutely and the camaraderie from races, 100 milers, like the highs, the lows. There have been times, especially during a 100 miler, where I'm like, okay, I've been out here for 25 hours, or, "Oh my god, it's so cold. I'm so cold. I'm so cold." But you wanna finish, "I'm so cold. Maybe I can get past this," or, "I've gotten sick on the trail." But then there's the high moments where I feel great. And so to me, it has helped me in life as well to just kinda stop, smell the roses, calm down. Everything's just a moment. Might be a long there's a wrong moment. But calms me down. It's made me very structured too, which is structured maybe to a fault. I Yeah, so I'm taking a break and maybe I'll come back to be I've run over 100 races or something.
A lot. Well, thank you for sharing those with us via your social media because it was inspiring to me. It did not inspire me enough to get my butt out and run, but it was inspiring to see you out there.
Those walks around
I did. We had awesome walk, and that was really a fun and community building, culture building. And then it had to come to a stop with the pandemic. And I tried doing it online with the cell phone, walking around. No one joined me. But I then after the pandemic, when we came back and tried to resurrect it, and everyone was over it. But at the beginning, it was really fun because people were just like, "Yeah, let's go," and you get to discover different parts of campus, and it brought together different parts of the department, people that oftentimes didn't talk to each other, didn't work together. We had that, so it was fun. But yeah, but thank you for sharing. Yep, yeah, we do. Yeah, I live vicariously through you, and I ran vicariously through your social media posts because I wasn't out there. I tell you, woo! Thinking about your time at Montclair, and anytime that you're in a faculty role, a new faculty role, there's some curriculum redevelopment and changes and shapes. And what are some of your hopes and things that you're working on to bring some of your experiences, both industry and research experiences, to the curriculum there?
Yeah. Ironically, we're working through that right now. So proposals for fall 2026. I'm on our departmental curriculum committee as well, which is different than any position that I've ever been in before, like reviewing all these proposals from across the department. But I think for me, my discipline is really working on bridging the gap between what I feel is academia and industry and how to incorporate that into the curriculum. So that's my goal. And what I mean by that is more guest speakers, more interaction. Love to, although it's difficult, this has always been at the top of my brain is how do I engage my industry to whether it's creating a module or to go beyond guest speaking, whatever that might be. The challenge to me has been, does anybody have time? And also, I tried to work with Dimitri, who's the president of A&T USA. I tried to do this at Kent State. He was so graciously offered his software for free to our program. So I did that one semester, but the difficulty I found was, especially with retail math and introducing that, students aren't necessarily always comfortable with computer applications. So trying to understand retail math and introducing this system, they're more focused on, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
That was very challenging and which caused me to take a pause. I know he's still open to doing different things, but I'm trying to figure that aspect out. So, my goal is to bring those experiences. However, I still have to be mindful of even with Excel working in retail math, students, formulas and stuff, it might be second nature to me, but it's not to them.
Right.
So when you introduce that new tool, a new application, lots of questions because there's I think there's this spirit of, is it gonna affect my grade if I don't do this right? Rather than trying to learn what it is that we're doing, it's always, am I doing this right? To the point where there could be something that's very small that they don't see because it's not doing this right. So that's my goal for curriculum though, to be honest. And to me, it's a big goal because it's hard when if everybody's not aligned there. And also another is I can only control my classes. So I can't control everybody else's classes, but I do wish that there were more partnership. And this has just been across the board with all the places that I've been in terms of curriculum, partnership across fashion design and merchandising and product development, whatever it is, classes to align so experience is seamless. And because quite frankly, that's how individuals will work on things in industry. But I'm excited though, because I feel like my voice is being heard on some of these things. And like Dr. Shea and I partnering on this human trafficking survivor project, I feel that type of stuff will happen more. I just have to be the one to say, hey, would you like to do this? And then I think there's an openness here to that, and I will say that there is a big push here, at least at Montclair State, for interdisciplinary work. The university heavily supports it, and not just across research, but also across classroom. So I was part of interdisciplinary, like, roundtables and meetings and I believe they'll offer them again this year to try to connect faculty to collaborate together on, again, research, classroom. So last year was my first year. This year, I feel like I'm getting my feet wet. Like I got my feet wet, but now I'm like really understanding everything that's going across the university and can spearhead more of those things. So that is what I'm really excited for in my curriculum because it is my proposal in all my reappointment materials. I talk heavily about interdisciplinary work and also wanting to bring some of these projects to life in my classroom and the connection to well-being. And so that is definitely a goal of mine is to because I think it's important for students,
Right.
frankly. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, they're very fortunate to have you there. They really are. They really are. They are.
Really?
As we wrap up our conversation, I asked every guest the question,
Yeah.
how do you define innovation?
So that for me, it aligns with everything in my research. I define innovation as a way to take something we have and create something new to empower others. Simply put, I really feel like a lot of times we think about innovation as this brand new, shiny whatever that I've created that nobody else has created. But what I really think in 2025 and beyond, can we start thinking about taking what we have and making it better? But the key part is to empower others. I feel like there's not enough of that empower others to kind of stop the divide between high and low, those that know and those that don't know, to bridge that gap, bring people together. So that's how I think about innovation is bringing people together, using what you have to do that to empower and create change.
I love it. Love it, love, love. Well, thank you for sharing that. Oh, and thank you for being here and sharing your story and what you're working on and your background with us. It has been inspiring for me.
Thank you so much for this platform. I just want to tell you, I'm so happy that you have this platform for those in the academia to share their stories and to bring awareness to issues. Thank you so much because I think it was very much needed.
Oh, well, thank you. It was my pleasure. It was my
Good work. Yes.
oh, thank you. Well, to our audience, thank you for joining us for this incredible conversation with Dr. Michelle Burton. From her corporate retail experience to groundbreaking research on sustainability and her candid reflections on navigating academia, Dr. Burton reminds us the importance of charting your own path while building bridges for others to follow. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure that you connect with Dr. Burton at Montclair State University. Follow her on LinkedIn. We'll have all of those connections also on the show notes. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, share it with your network. Your support enables us to continue bringing these powerful conversations to the forefront. So, thank you for tuning in and keep innovating, keep dreaming, and keep making a difference.